What got me started? I started real young, 8, 9 years old, started training. Brothers and sisters did it. My dad was a bodybuilder and football player. Mom was a martial artist. I was looking at the magazines. It was one of those things, I was looking at the magazines of Arnold and stuff and wanted to be like that or be like Bruce Lee, the combination of both. And so started competing in martial arts, powerlifting, and bodybuilding. By 13, competed in my first Olympic lifting meet. I was already competing in martial arts by then. And then 14 was both powerlifting and bodybuilding. And it happened fast. 3 years later, I was at Teenage Nationals, already in the magazines at that point from Teenage Nationals. So at 17, made it into the magazines. Joe Weider got word of me, saw me, and a few years later flew me down and set me up in California to continue my bodybuilding career. And from there, went on to win Natural Mr. America, Mr. International, Mr. Universe 4 times, Mr. USA, and also won the California powerlifting 4 times, the Washington State powerlifting, the California judo champion. So continued to do that stuff. And this is by 20s, and booked American Gladiators.
Yeah,
and started TV at that point. So the combination of both.
Was it your choice to start going into bodybuilding, or was it like your parents' influence? Because like 8 and 9 years old is like pretty young.
Yeah, it was pretty young. No, everything I've been able to do was from me wanting to do something, and then the support from the parents, which was awesome. And great parents. The hard thing was they had 10 kids to govern, which was great for me growing up. And now I'm learning all those responsibilities now being a first-time dad. I love how my dad raised me in the sense of, you make mistakes, you're gonna have to deal with it. Because we have 10 kids, we can't govern you. We can't govern you and just baby you. You have to grow up, which you can't do nowadays. But by 9 and 10, I already had a paper route and starting to make money and stuff like that. And so I had that work ethic. That's where the 4 a.m.s came in, from the paper route at that age. And I just never went away from that early morning training, but it was always me that wanted to do this. And then at 9, 10, 11, I kept telling my parents, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do. And by 16, 17, when they started seeing like I was getting in the magazines, I was in the newspapers all the time. In high school, I was All-American football player, and they were like, well, maybe this might be the approach for you to go. So that's where my dad wanted me to go. And I loved the other side of it. I didn't want to do a team sport. I wanted to be the individual. I wanted to stand out and do it myself. I didn't want to rely on anybody else on winning or losing. I wanted to put the pressure on myself, and that's why I decided my angle was something else. Yeah, I did. That's a great point too. The question again is did something happen at that young age that made me go, this is it? And it was when I was, again, I'm growing up in a family of competitors. My sisters competed in martial arts and powerlifting and bodybuilding. My brothers did too. So I was around this circle of people that were always striving to be better and better, which was great. And there was also a lot of smack talk. So I grew up with a lot of that locker room mentality of fight, always be on, always be ready. And I love that, and I'm glad I grew up that way. But when I was 14, I went into my first bodybuilding show, and it was 20 teenagers, and they were all 19-year-olds, and I was 14, and I won the show. And I'm sitting there going, holy shnikes, I'm winning things, and I'm getting good, and I'm a big kid, and I can beat these guys. This is where I'm gonna keep going. And that kind of, I believed in myself before that, but that kind of just goes, okay, this is definitely where I'm going. At 14 and looking at all these 19-year-olds, and I was so scared to go out on stage. And after that, I was like, I'm just done, this is it. And it continued that way. 2 weeks later, I did a powerlifting meet, and they're like, no, you don't do it that way. It doesn't work that way. And I won my powerlifting meet at 14. I'm like, it works that way for me. And I like this road. And it continued that way. And by the time, again, like 17, I was at Teenage Nationals. And again, the doubters. You can't go to teenage nationals. These kids are just monsters. These guys are huge. And they were. Chris Cormier was in there. Gerard Dente was in there. These guys that continued on as well as I did. Chris took it third at the Olympia one year. But the one thing that I liked is that I was bigger than everybody by 17. And these guys were all 19-year-olds. And so again, I walk on stage at 17 at 200 and almost 20 pounds. And I'm like, this is fun for me. This is cool. I didn't beat those guys, but just being up there and doing that. And then the secondary to that is like, we've talked about this. Yes, you need to win the shows, mostly in my era. You have to win, or you have to be unique in a sense, or you have to have something of benefit to be in the magazines. Now today, anybody can do that because of Instagram or social media, but the one thing that I had was I had this belief in myself, and by 17, Joe saw that, Joe Weider, and he put me in the magazines, and he's like, I understand you didn't beat these guys, but you have something that the majority of society would like to look like. And I was like, wow, that's coming from the man. And that to me is a victory, especially because at that stage, it was like he brought Arnold Schwarzenegger over and he brought Mike O'Hearn down from Washington. I'm like, that's a cool circle to be in. And hearing that and then continuing that relationship with him and over the years, just listening to him and how the advice he gave to Arnold, and then Arnold giving me advice on how they made what they did. I was like, this really isn't about, even though I won the shows and I won the universe and I won these shows, it was so much more about the secondary stuff that you need to do and trigger. And the great thing about that is, we all know this, everybody can do Arnold's workouts. They can follow him around the gym and everything like that. You're not going to be Arnold. And everybody loves Arnold's physique. I loved Arnold's personality and who he was. That's what I fell in love with. I fell in love with Bruce Lee on who he was and how he spoke off the movies. The movies were cool and stuff, and the martial arts was cool and stuff. But when he talked, I'm like, man, I just want to sit down and talk to this guy. He has so much wisdom about life at such a young age. So that's what impressed me about them, and that's what I kind of just grabbed onto and said, there's so much more than winning the show. It's about the fight within you and who you are as an individual and what you got to give.
Yeah.
I know we went off there, but
No, I love that.
but for anybody that's getting ready for a show or doing a show, yes, try to win, obviously. That's the dog in you. You got to go out and fight for it. But at the same time, if you don't win your first show, keep going. Keep going, especially as we are going through this whole epidemic that we're going through. You realize how precious life is and how things can shut you down and where you have to continue to fight for what you believe in against everybody. I don't want to say no. It's the question again is fighting for your pro card. Is it essential? Back in my days, they only gave out a couple pro cards a year. And so it was a fight, and it was something that meant so much. And so that was a huge thing. And it did transfer somebody from being a full-time bodybuilder, not living, to making a living. But nowadays they kind of give them out. And even though they do give them out a lot more divisions, which is great, and it's cool that you want to get that. I see so many other people focused on building who they are instead of that one goal of the card, in a sense. I know so many, and you know this too, we know so many amateurs or people that haven't even competed that are celebrities. And kids today call everybody legends. So this guy could have 2 million followers and he's a legend because he has 2 million followers on Instagram. And that's, again, there's two sides of this. I would say continuously build up who you are and develop who you are and keep promoting yourself in anything that you do. But fight for the card, the pro card, but don't lose yourself in it. And what I mean by losing yourself in it is changing your physique to appease 9 judges is losing yourself. And that's the worst thing I can do. I've seen so many girls that looked incredible, and they go, oh, well, I need to do this to the body, and I got to do this and this and this. And within 2 years, they changed so much, and they're like, well, I'm going to win it this time. And I'm like, yeah, but look what you did to that physique that you wanted, And now you're giving these people what they want, and that's not what you really truly want. And that's the biggest and toughest thing I see. And I'm glad there's more classes in the health and fitness world, because you don't have to change it so much now. So it's somewhat beneficial. But again, don't lose yourself to appease 9 judges that are not paying your rent and your mortgage and living your life. Create the physique, the very best physique you can for you, and then just live it. The great thing about today is landing a sponsor. Take the initiative. This is something that somebody told me early on. He said, go to the magazines, find all the editors. Now, this is back when magazines were important. Now it's the individual that's important. But I would still work the same way. I would find out who runs all the companies, put a press kit together, and send it out to them. And then continue to fight for those kind of sponsorships, because those help. I mean, obviously, any kind of finance right now with a clothing company or a vitamin company or anything like that would help. But make the initiative. Don't think, and I think most people do, I need to win a show or I need to get a pro card and then I'll get the sponsorship. I know guys that have never competed or done anything, but they get a good following because they've got a good, charming personality, or people fall in love with them for some odd reason, and they get the sponsorship over the guy trying to win the pro card. So don't do that. Start the work instantly and that goes back to building yourself up and who you are and what you are. And don't copy. Don't do this. Don't go on the internet and go, this guy's Instagram is doing great and this is what he's doing, so I'm just going to mimic that. Don't do that. Be just yourself. It's amazing if you really go through social media and see some things, people are just blowing up. This lady may cook and she gets 1 million followers. You may do it and get nothing. So find out what you like and who you are and really who you are, and let that fly. Yeah. For me, it's art. It's the continuous of creating an art piece that you like. So it has nothing to do with sports. It has nothing to do with, I love pumping iron, obviously. I watched pumping iron for my first shows constantly while I was on cardio. I've probably seen it more than anybody. But it's creating the art piece. So I think of it as like Michelangelo painting something or making the statue of David. I'm continuously trying to create this physique. And it's still to this day. We put up a video today from the 80s, and it's amazing that we're still here, 40 years later, doing this and creating that art piece. And it's something that's so passionate for somebody that really falls into the love of developing a physique, that you don't need motivation, it's art. And it's not for me to show to other people, I do it for myself, which is a huge thing for anybody. I don't know if they'll understand this. Let me say it again. Make sure you're creating the physique not for picking up on women or looking good for guys, for the girls, but doing the physique for what you want to look like. For yourself, and make that physique. Because if you do, here's another thing, it goes back to the 9 judges. If you're creating a physique for what you think these people will like you or what people want to see, again, you're not going to stay with it. Yeah. Posing routine, I'm looking for myself something entertainment, something that's nice. But also I'm looking, because I'm a judge, flaws. What's he hiding? And someone that's good on stage will hide their flaws so you can never see them, which is great. And so what you see in front of you is just this art piece that continuously moves, and you're like, okay, that's something beautiful. Relative to other people that will not spend the time, and I've seen this over and over again, people lose the show to somebody that's not as good because they're showing every pose instead of the poses that are best for them. So that's something to take into consideration. Don't show things that if you got a thick waist, stay sideways most of the time, hide that. So anything like that. I think it goes back to be patient, be calm, don't stress. I know that's easy for me to say, but the main thing is don't stress as you're getting ready for the show, because that's just gonna make it worse for you. It's gonna slow your body down. That's the one thing I think is just amazing about bodybuilding or showing your physique in a show is that you're trying to make it look so perfect and nerves come into play. You could look incredible the day before when you're not ready to go on stage and everything, and you look in the hotel room and you're awesome, and then you start getting nervous and you see somebody else backstage and then you just blow up. Start retaining water because you're like, oh, this person might be better than me, and then you start freaking out a little bit. So stay as calm as you possibly can. Know the judges want to see the very best out of you, and just try to enjoy the process of it. Because going through that process, I respect anybody that can do the diet, anybody that can train. Again, you look incredible, but you're at your worst. That's the hardest thing about it. You're at the lowest calorie intake. You're doing the most exercise in the world. So physically you feel terrible, but your body is so beautiful at that point. So I give respect to anybody that can do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. COVID for me, the great thing is we planned ahead in some sense and got lucky in some sense. We set up a home gym prior to anything that we even knew about. I just wanted some kind of gym so Mona could have a place to train because of the baby. But as the lockdown came, for me it was actually helpful because one of the things that I do is I travel all year and I guest pose all year, so I'm in a deficit all year. So that's hard on my body. And so the one thing I got to do is actually kick back a little bit, go in the first off season I've gone in 10 years, and put all that muscle memory back on, which was nice. Taking a good calorie intake, build that strength back up, and then also enjoy the time with my little one, which was the coolest thing in the world for me as a father. So it worked out good for me in a sense. I took the opportunity to really appreciate what I had, appreciate the situation I'm in. And then it made me think about business and open up my mind. And what was cool is I got to help out these knuckleheads over here and bring some guys on and really analyze the future. And so some sense, and I know that everybody's going through a hard time. And again, the one thing I'm lucky about is that my better half, Mona, is a fighter. She came over during a civil war from Romania, not speaking the language, and made herself a multimillionaire success story. So America's great. And then the way she approaches America is, this is what I got, this is what I'm gonna fight for, everything else is irrelevant. And so that kind of approach I really tried to adopt during this time being locked down. And that helped our business. We really focused on business, on, okay, how can we get a hold of these people and really keep everybody moving forward in a positive light? And instead, because I know that you were talking about January, February, March, we're okay. Everybody's locked down. So everybody went into this, and I could understand it. I cut my calories. I'm gonna diet down for the next month so I stay in good shape during this time. And I'm like telling everybody, no, now we need to eat. Put the carbohydrates back in, let your bodies recover, do less work. And we tried to teach people that during the, what has it been now, 9 months? To slow down, let the body relax and recover. Don't try to overtrain during this time because then you're just beating yourself up. And that's not helpful because also you're already stressed out with what's going on and everybody's locked down. So many people lost their jobs, and I'm like, this is the time where you need to kind of slow down and let the body heal. So it kind of opened us up just to the whole business aspect of trying to help people more, which I think in the long run is going to help us understand clients' business and continue to teach me how to reach fans around the world to help them. Well, the one thing I think is we need to lose the idea that there's a thing called light. And the one thing that's helped me stay consistent throughout the years where so many fell off, and everybody that I started with back in the 80s are done. And the one thing that's helped me is I realized heavy weight will help my bones get stronger, will help my connective tissue get stronger. Now the secondary from that is, yeah, I'll build muscle. But if I focus on that more, I'll be able to do this for a lifetime. And that was the ultimate goal. Somebody asked me and I said, what do you want to do for a lifetime? I want to lift my life away. I love lifting. So if I can do that and do it for a long period of time, I'm happy with that. And I think today people are so into trying to be creative or trying to get posts or trying to do the singles instead of going in just old school style and doing the work that you're supposed to do and then build up over time. I think that's something that's lost, which is unfortunate, but at the same time, you're still trying to build a business, and it goes back to what we said earlier. These kids have to build a business, and social media is the business. And so they, in some sense, have to perform, which is a give and take. So if I'd say anything to these kids as they go into the gym and they are doing their training, get your training in and then do whatever you want to do for social media outside of that. But stay true to your training and the plan. Well, we won't talk about now because right now we're in the crazy 30-day blitz, and that's absolutely crazy for anybody.
Maybe someone like on prepper.
But I'm the guy that believes in carbohydrates most of the year. I'm the guy that says, don't run away from anything that you're not going to be able to stay away from for a lifetime. I believe in keeping the calories high. That way you can train as hard as you can and keep the metabolism functioning. Those are some of the biggest principles where I see today's society, and we were just watching videos of these people, and it's just constant. Here's a meal. This is an anabolic meal. It's 180 calories. Well, that's not anabolic. You're starving yourself. So, but they throw in key words that sound cool, and everybody's just trying to teach you how to starve. And I'm like, oh, this is we're setting ourselves up to fail if you watch social media. And so the one thing that we try to do and try to continue to teach is calories are good. Metabolism is the best friend in the world. If you can keep your metabolism functioning in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, you're golden. You're healthy. That strong immune system. But if you start going away from that and you start dieting all year long and always in a deficit, you're going to hurt yourself. So for me, I'm always trying to eat a proper amount of protein, calories, carbohydrates. I do moderate fats. I'm not one of these guys that believes in doing 100 and 200 grams of fats a day. I believe in just a healthy carbohydrates and making sure my body knows how to use and function with carbohydrates, where I think today, again, everybody's scared of carbohydrates. My favorite meal, I'm pretty basic, but a favorite meal is just a cup of oatmeal and 8 ounces of chicken. That's basic. Mona's better on that. I'm simple. I'm always on a nutrition plan. I've always been that way since 9 years old. So it's really whatever the plan is. Oh, actually, no. Right now, the best meals in the world is anything with Piedmontese steak.
Okay.
So these guys, which is a miracle. You ever had a filet that's 0 fat?
No.
Is that crazy? It just sounds crazy. So these guys, they got the big bowls, and what do they remove? The myostatin gene. The myostatin gene is removed, and so these guys are lean and just muscular. So I eat what I am. I guess that's what they say. I am what I eat.
Oh, interesting.
So, but the steak is incredible. It's low fat. So anything from that, we have Titan on 40 grams of steak dogs a day. He's 38 pounds, but he eats 2 of those bad boys a day, and they're like just hot dogs, but they're steak dogs. 22 grams of protein, 2 grams of fat, and they're delicious. And everything they do is delicious, and it's low fat. So for me, it's great, and anything from them is great.
Nice.
So
Awesome. Love it.
that's the go-to now. I think the best thing for an athlete as they get ready for shows, or let's say this, because when everybody gets ready for a show, they're pretty consistent, right? You got 12 weeks. I'm going to make the plan. This is it. I would rather see, and people that will be successful are the ones going, those 9 months before the show is when I'm going to start. So there's possibly a chance you're doing the show in June. Start now. Start prepping now in the sense of being on a plan for this next months, going through New Year's, going through, Christmas. But get on a plan now. Don't wait for this 12-week thing. Everybody's about to 12 weeks. After that, I'm free again. This is the hardest sport in the world, or art piece in the world in a sense, because of the fact that a martial artist trains more than anybody. But when they go home, they go home. Where a bodybuilder or a fitness person never gets to go home and be off. They have to eat their meals. every 2 hours. They got to get the proper sleep. They got to get the proper recovery. They need to make sure they're recovered in time to go train again the next day, where athletes don't have to recover. Athletes train like beasts, and they're better athletes. But to create an art piece, you have to recover. The body has to recover, because you can only train as well as you recover. That's it. So I would say for all of them, start dieting and start being on a proper program now. And when I mean dieting, I mean, if you're a guy, make sure the calories are good, your strength is up, and you're putting on muscle right now and not too much fat. And if you're a girl, the same thing. Don't be doing cardio in the off season. Try to make sure that your metabolism is functioning well to where you don't have to do cardio and you're just putting on muscle. So that's what I would say to everybody. Even though the show or that prep is 6 months away or whatever it is, that's the one thing that I see that the kids today don't do. Where in the old school, man, they were on all year long. They were like, I'm getting ready for the O next year. I started today. And that's a savage. And that's the kind of people I like being around.
Awesome. Love it.